Welcome to Talkin Ducks. I am Aaron Fentress filling in for Jordan Kent. What a week this is going to be for the Oregon Ducks. Number 8 going to play number 13 Utah. A massive showdown with all sorts of implications. We will break it down from top to bottom here on Talkin Ducks, and we will also be joined, as usual, by Dan Rubenstein from Solid Verbal to go over the Pac-12, USC's troubles, Oregon, Washington, etc. But first, it's time for our opening drive, brought to you by Capital Toyota, your way on the Parkway. All right, let's welcome in my dudes, Joey Harrington, Anthony Newman. Been doing this show together for 9 years, by the way, just in case you didn't know. But guys, 38-24, Washington State comes into Oregon, gives them a game. Oregon looked a little sloppy early, but pulled away late. We wondered how they would rebound from the devastating loss at Washington. I think they did a pretty darn good job. What do you guys think? Let's start with you, Mr. Harrington.
Me, not surprised they came out slow. I mean, if you're looking at, we had talked about this game being a trap game had they had won against Washington, right? We saw what Washington did against Arizona State after a big game and a letdown at home and barely squeaking by Arizona State. So I wasn't surprised that they came out slow. But what I was really happy to see is the way they kind of course corrected, right? The game started, it was almost like, I don't say they were trying to manufacture something. Pass, 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 punt. Pass, 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 punt. And then they all of a sudden realized, why are we trying to do something different? And they just gave the ball to Bucky Irving and told the offensive line to just go take over. And just like they have all season, that run game opened the door for everything else. And everything else just kind of seemed to fall into place, let's call it, halfway through the second quarter and then especially into the third. I think that third, let's just say the second half was the Oregon team that we have kind of come to expect to see. But I wasn't surprised to see the slow start. The thing is, though, you look at, and again, I'm going to make this Washington comparison. You look at Washington in the game after the Oregon-Washington game. 3 turnovers in the first half, barely, scored 15 points. I mean, they couldn't do anything. Even in what was considered a slow game for Bo Nix, he still completed just about 70% of his passes for just under 300 yards, a couple of touchdowns, and no picks, right? So if that's a slow game, then I'm feeling pretty good about what this offense and what this team can do specifically going down at the end of the year.
All right, Anthony, I'm coming to you since you're a defensive guru. Washington State got hammered 44-6 at home against Arizona. They come into Austin and Ward throws for 400 plus, but he was sacked 6 times and the Ducks didn't give up a lot of points. But is there any concern at all with how many yards they gave up to a Washington State team that had been struggling?
The defense is getting better. I mean, it's obvious that it's obvious that Cameron Ward, give him some credit. He is a good quarterback, and Joey, I think you agree. The kid he can escape the pocket. He's strong. He has great vision down the field, and he can throw the football. So give him credit. He's just not some guy out there just running around, on a weekend throwing the football around. The offensive line did an okay job. Yeah, Oregon got to the quarterback. Oregon had 7 TFLs, tackles for loss, playing on the other side of the ball. The secondary is beat up, but the guys who came in, they played, and that's what you want to see. Here it's easier for the defense when this happens. Okay, and I'll explain it to you. When the offense, and Joey said it, just runs the football. Great. Oh, okay, you run the football. You're getting first downs. You're controlling the clock. You're keeping Cameron Ward off the field. He's on the sideline. So as a defensive player, I'm sitting down on the sideline. I got the best seat in the house because my team is running the football and I'm watching the game going, this is great. First down, first down. When you have a bad team and you're on the defense, you sit down to get water. Oh, punt team, I got to get up and go play defense again. So Oregon is doing a great job. Just run the football and play solid defense.
Fentress, I'm coming to you on this, okay? Because we can't just keep you out of this conversation. And I come to you as a neutral observer here, right? We can call a spade here. Of the 3 of us, Newman's going to be hardline homer, right? You are going to be viewed, though not necessarily, you are very neutral. I will share that. But you're going to be viewed as like hardline, I hate the Ducks, Oregon sucks, and everybody from Eugene is terrible. And I'm, kind of sometimes working that middle. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying that's how you're viewed. And I think it's hilarious. I'm coming to you as a neutral party here. I saw Kyrie Jackson gone. I saw injuries, and I'll just use that as the starting point. Injuries on defense, an offense that wasn't on fire to start the game, and I walked out of there, and a Washington State team with Cam Ward, who you take that last game out of it against Arizona, had been on fire to start this season, right? I'm actually feeling pretty good coming out of this game, knowing that shorthanded in a game after a rivalry where offensively they weren't doing so great, I felt like holding them to, really they held them to 17 points. That last touchdown was kind of a garbage thing. I'm curious how you felt.
All right, first off, full disclosure, I was at the game, but I wasn't covering it. It was parent weekend, and I happened to have a kid going to Oregon now, and I actually even bought a white eggshell hat and wore it. And I wasn't worried about the ethical situation being a journalist because I pay tuition. Therefore, I feel like I can rock a hat every once in a while if I want to. Anyway, that said, very interesting game for me. I gave Washington State a lot of credit for coming in and executing a game plan, doing what they do best. Quick passes, get rid of the ball, try and move it methodically, try and keep Oregon's offense off the field to some degree. They didn't really have maybe the talent to get a ton of big plays, although they did get some in some instances when Oregon was in man and maybe didn't get to the quarterback. But I thought they just did a great job executing their game plan, and that kept them in it for a while. And also Ward is just a magician. That guy, he was sacked 6 times, but he must have escaped and evaded about 8 others. It was crazy. Even my father-in-law, Dan Remington, who was there sitting to my right, was like, how come they can't get to him? I'm like, give him credit. He's amazing. He's just Houdini out there. So I give Washington State credit for how they played. However, it makes me wonder, you give up 400-plus passing against a team that's been struggling, could Oregon be vulnerable moving forward, even against Utah's offense, which isn't great, or even especially down the road against USC, Oregon State? I just got to wonder. They won and everything, but, there's still some questions about this defense that I have. All right, now it's time for our legendary performance brought to you by Abby's Legendary Pizza. Bucky Irving, Oregon running back, 15 carries, 129, 3 catches for 51 yards, 3 total touchdowns, and 3 plays of 40 yards or more. He was Oregon's best player on Saturday, no doubt, at least on offense. Let's hear Coach Dan Lanning talk about his star running back.
I'd say his heart's pounding out of his chest, right? This dude's so passionate. He cares so much for his teammates. Never goes down on first contact. Really selfless player. And I think that shows up when you watch this guy play on the field. Yeah, I don't know that anybody wants this team to be more successful than Bucky Irving, right? He cares about his team. He cares about his teammates. He loves hard. This guy, I won't go into detail about his backstory, but the adversity that this guy's faced, for him to be the remarkable young man that he is really impressive. And, I have 3 sons. I hope my sons can grow up and be like Bucky Irving.
Bucky was definitely special in this game, showed off his all-purpose abilities. Newman, let's start with you. How do you think he changed this game once he got things rolling?
He is a dude. I'm telling you right now, Bucky Irvin's the real deal. And I feel bad, and I just messed up. A few years ago, we're talking about, who's Bucky Irving? Who is this guy? I was talking about, who was it, Byron Carwell or something like that? I thought he was the next thing to, slice bread. And then here comes Bucky Irving. I was like, whoa. But this guy can do everything. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can block, protect his quarterback. He can run between the tackles. He will run over you. He will run around you. He sets up his blocking. Oh, it's unbelievable how he does it. He's just an all-around back. And in Oregon, they just keep getting these running backs year after year after year, and he's another one.
Yeah, I'll say when I saw him with 129 at the end of the game, I was surprised because it felt like 229. I mean, he had that type of impact, especially in the second half of the game. And Newman, you said it, he's just so versatile. You catch the ball out of the backfield. You run it between the tackles. You're fast enough to hit the edge. You got the vision and the patience to set up blocks. He's a special type of player. And like Lanning said, you can tell that he isn't concerned about stats or carries or, trying to get mine. Like he wants to help the team win in any way you can. And that's so huge when you've got that kind of talent and that kind of selfless talent in the backfield.
All right, next up on Talkin Ducks, we will begin taking our deep dive into the top 15 showdown at Rice-Eccles Stadium coming up next.
You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber.
Welcome back to Talkin Ducks. All right, it's time now to examine this top 15 showdown. Game day will be there. Rice-Eccles Stadium, where Utah has won 29 of 30 and 18 in a row. Newman, how does Oregon go in there and get this done?
Yeah, it's going to be a battle. It's tough to win there. A well-coached football team that plays defense. They've lost a lot of stars. They really have, but they play as a team. And when you look at that Utah team, there's no really superstar on that football team. It's everyone. It's all 11 on defense, all 11 on offense and special teams. And they're well coached. I mean, when you look at the coaching staff, Kyle Whittingham has been there forever. It's not a revolving door with that coaching staff. So there's a culture that's built. There's an identity that's built. And everybody understands that. And the coaching staffs have been there forever. So, they have something that's in place that everybody else should be looking at right now, what they're doing. And I don't think Utah gets the pub like they should because, maybe because it's in Utah and nothing's going on there. I don't know. But this football team can play, and they have played well in the past, and they're going to be good as long as Kyle Whittingham is the head coach.
All right, I still don't have a prediction yet, to be honest with you. I'm still weighing this as we talk about it. But, man, there's a lot of red flags with this game. A few weeks ago, I kind of thought, okay, Oregon might have this, but Utah's been playing better. That defense is no joke. And they can make this an ugly game. They can come out there and be very physical up front and maybe force Bo into a lot of bad situations down and distance-wise and make this a close game and then find a way to steal it just on something happening. I mean, who knows what kind of crazy thing could happen in this game to flip it to Utah. And, Bo so far in his career at Oregon, he hasn't really gone into a hostile environment like this with a team of this caliber. I mean, he was able to rise up against Texas Tech and get it done there, but Utah's way better than Texas Tech. And so I just wonder if he's going to be able to carry this team on his back if the run game gets stuffed. We'll see. And we cannot discount at all what Utah just did to USC, going on the road. USC, yes, they're vulnerable, but still, to go on the road and do that, to kind of contain Caleb Williams, I think this is a scary opponent for the Ducks.
Newman, you mentioned how well they play as a team, but I think they play so well as a team, and you also mentioned they don't have a superstar, but I think they play so well as a team, and they've done such a great job of recreating themselves from injuries that you forget about Jonah Ellis. I mean, this guy is superstar. I mean, I don't say potential, but he's leading the conference in tackles for loss. He's leading the conference in sacks. I almost feel like it's a game plan for him, right? You take care of him. Like you said it a second ago, Fentress. Stay out of second and long, third and longs. How do you do that? You avoid negative plays. How do you avoid negative plays? Well, you keep that guy out of the backfield, right? You figure out where he is, and then you chip a running back off of him in pass plays, or you run sort of some sort of drum upfield. You not trap block him, but run counter into him or something. Like there are ways to make sure that he does not create those second and long, third and long opportunities. Because you're right, like Fentress, time of possession. Utah leads the entire country in time of possession. Tackles for loss, they lead the conference. Tied in sacks. The coaching job that Kyle Whittingham has done this year is absolutely... I mean, if he doesn't win Coach of the Year, I don't know, what the award is for. I mean, you lose your quarterback, you lose your superstars, and all of a sudden you're still sitting right there on the top of the conference, competing for a conference championship. I think that they can get a lead. I think that they can do enough. if for no other reason that Utah is simply shorthanded, right? I don't think that they have seen a team that is as well balanced, both offensively and defensively, and an offense that is as well balanced run and pass as they have in Oregon. Yeah, USC is a phenomenal offense. They throw the ball all over the place. They're booty on defense, and everybody knows it, right? I mean, that's an undeniable fact. So I think that there is enough there for Oregon to get ahead. And I almost feel like this is one of those games where if Utah makes it ugly and sticks around, then now you're looking at being in trouble. But if Oregon can get enough of a lead, I don't know that they can score enough points to come back. I mean, this is an offense that really misses Cam Rising, and Kyle Whittingham has done an unbelievable job of reinventing this team with what he has.
Speaking of Whittingham, let's hear what Oregon coach Dan Lanning had to say about the Utah coach.
Yeah, the amount of injuries that they've dealt with, and for him to be able to utilize defensive personnel on offense and, shuffle, positions and utilize offensive linemen at tight end, I think it's just really impressive. Everyone's always known that he's a great coach, but the way that he's been able and his staff's been able to utilize the people they have. I know at the beginning of the year he spoke about the depth of his team is starting to really show up. He has good depth, but they're utilizing people in different ways than they anticipated when the year started, and he's done a great job coaching that group. Of the teams in our conference, this is a team that I probably have the most respect for defensively, what they do and the pressure that they apply and how they game plan and change what they do game to game. So I think, their scheme along with their talent, sets up really well for them in every game. So it's somebody we have to be really prepared for. We have to think, outside the box and do a good job against them.
Last year when Utah defeated USC in the Pac-12 title game, I went back and looked at Utah's recruiting rankings the prior 4 or 5 years leading up to that season, and the average class ranking was around 44, whereas Oregon's was 11. And here were the Utes winning their second straight conference title. And you look at Oregon and USC, and you look at the amount of 4- and 5-star kids they recruit, and then you look at the few that Utah get every year, and you just have to ask yourself, how is Utah winning the conference title multiple years in a row, and Oregon and USC are being left out? And so I just have to ask, is it just the fact that Whittingham is the best coach this conference has seen since Chip Kelly?
I say yes. I'm telling you right now, it runs in the family. His father was my coach with the Rams, Fred Whittingham.
What?
Yes. And
Not only is your daughter going to marry a Beaver, but you were coached by a Ute?
No.
I mean, seriously, what's going on here? What else don't we know about you?
Oh, hey, I bleed green and yellow right now. I tell you that right now. But I've been around some people that have coached well, and Fred Whittingham has coached well, and that's Kyle's father. Kyle's done a great job. Whittingham has done a great job at Utah keeping coaches around. And I said it earlier. He's built a culture there. There's guys, it's like the old Oregon teams, Joey. You know this, when Mike Bellotti, before that, Rich Brooks was there forever. Then Mike Bellotti and his staff was there forever. DP was there forever. Greatwood was there forever. Utah's doing the same thing. I mean, Morgan Scalley's been there. He's the DC. He's been there 16 seasons. It's unreal what he's doing there. And the people, when the kids know they're coming into Utah, they know what they get. They understand it. It's not, the coach is going to be gone tomorrow because there's more money over here. They're not getting that. They're just a well-disciplined coach team, but there's holes. Question: how did Oregon State beat them? Oregon State had an offense and they had a defense. USC just has an offense. When Utah plays against a team that has an offense and a defense, it's a battle for them. Now they got to work extra hard. They don't usually go against teams that have an offense and a defense, and Oregon has both.
Your question, Finch. Okay. I've been trying to think.
The only real challenger might be David Shaw, Stanford.
You were going right where I was like, is Leach there? Like, in terms of doing the most with the least? Maybe, but never won a conference championship. Whittingham has won 2 in a row. I think I would put David Shaw above him right now. Simply for, an entire decade of sustained excellence. Now, Whittingham has done it, 2 in a row. They've been in the conversation for the last 5, let's say. They've been hanging around before that. They've been kind of a nuisance. If he continues to do this for the next 5 years, I think that I think that he would, at least in my mind, earn that moniker. Not that, who really cares. But I think David Shaw and his ability to, look, you can only recruit a certain type of player at Stanford. Right? You're not bringing in 5-star guys. You're not bringing in guys that are incredibly athletic and have their choice of schools. You're bringing in a certain type of player. And for David Shaw to mold that team and that program over the course of, was he there, 12, 13 years? It was a long time. I would call it for the better part of a decade. He was in the conversation every single year. And I think you have, for me, I think he's the one person that I would probably put above Kyle right now. But that's no knock on Kyle and what he's done at Utah, because it's pretty incredible.
Okay, we all know that Oregon has to do some damage against Utah's running game, and they just added a new weapon. Justin Jacobs, linebacker, transfer from Iowa, made his debut against the Cougars. Dude is 6'4", 245. How much of a luxury is it to add him right now for the stretch run, especially when you're playing a very physical team like Utah? Newman, you played with some dudes that big back in the NFL. How huge is this addition for the Ducks?
Well, here's the difference with like the big linebackers back in the day. They couldn't run sideline to sideline or cover tight ends or running backs or even a receiver. Jacobs can do that. He is, like you said, 6'4", 245. He can run downhill. He can run sideline to sideline. He can cover a tight end in space. And the tight ends in today's game is a little different than it used to be. These are guys that are like so-called H-back guys. They're a little lighter, a little quicker. They're like a big receiver. He can cover those guys, and he tackles well, and he's nasty. That dude, he will hit you. So it's fun to watch guys like this and to develop. Too bad he's been hurt for so long. But now he has some games to play. He'll be fun to watch.
Next up, we will talk Oregon and everything else Pac-12 with Dan Rubenstein of the Solid Verbal Podcast. Up next here on Talkin Ducks.
You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber.
As usual on Talkin Ducks, we are joined by our main man, Dan Rubenstein of the Solid Verbal Podcast. By the way, very clever name, Solid Verbal.
Thank you.
Love it. Took me a second, and I was like, like a commit. That's clever. I like that.
I like that you're committed to our bit as well.
There you go. So, the Ducks won 38-24 over the Huskies, over Washington State. It wasn't necessarily a blowout that you might have hoped for as a Duck fan, but coming off an emotional loss, they got off to a slow start. Credit to Washington State, though, because they came out with a game plan to try and, be conservative and move the ball a little bit and not, put themselves into trouble. But at the end of the day, the best team won. What did you take away from that victory for the Ducks?
I took away a few things. I took away the fact that Oregon's defensive front, especially with a healthier front and a closer front to its best roster with Justin Jacobs, I think he is immediately a huge addition to that linebacking core, which should be pretty important, especially this week against a Utah team that likes to run the ball. He seems like he's a bigger linebacker who is a thumper. I like the fact that even without their best corner, the secondary, you look at the yardage that they gave up to Cam Ward and the Washington State offense. I don't know if that's a product of Washington State being excellent through the air as much as Oregon's been playing more man in the secondary than they have in a long time. And so you're just going to give up some bigger plays that way. But obviously the Oregon defense is on a much better level, and it's in a much better place than it was last year because they have the corner, they have the secondary to run some more interesting schemes this year. So I took that away, that I'm not terribly concerned, even with the yardage, the final yardage. Obviously, there was a late sort of garbage time touchdown, which made the game look a little bit closer than it eventually was. And offensively, look, if they can clean up some of the penalties, some of the procedural stuff that we've seen in the past couple weeks, they should be in a good place. And I'm still curious about what this offense looks like because at times, obviously, they look dominant on the ground, especially with Bucky Irving, but Jordan James coming into his own certainly as running back number 2. I'm still waiting for a passing attack that I thought we would see more of in a successful way. We saw it early with the pass to Terrence Ferguson, but the passing attack doesn't seem like it's fully warmed up, like it's fully defrosted. Like it seems like there should be more over the middle of the field. It should be like we should be seeing more shots to me down the field against some of these defenses. So I don't know if it's a back half of the season thing when they play against defenses like ASU and they play against defenses like USC, whatever. That was to me, and we're still talking about the number 1 points per drive offense in America right now. So it's nitpicking, but I think there are still steps to be taken in the passing game that I'm hopeful that we see the back half of the year.
Okay. A lot of drama in LA right now. Of course, you'd expect that in Hollywood around surrounding Lincoln Riley. What did that loss for USC tell you about Lincoln Riley and the Trojans? And then what did it tell you about where Utah is right now? This is a team that a few weeks ago lost 21-7 at Oregon State, but they seem to have fixed some things, got some guys back healthy. What did you glean from that game?
It's hard to know. Even the past 2 weeks of Utah's offense, playing against two of the worst defenses,
right,
not just in the Pac-12, but among Power 5 teams in Cal and USC. USC is small up front, and they do that slanting thing where they take a lot of chances trying to guess where the run is going to go, trying to guess where the protection is going to be, and if they guess wrong, there are wide open I-5 level lanes.
I saw Jeff Schwartz talking about that. Jeff Schwartz was talking about that, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what Alex Grinch did at Oklahoma. That's what he did at Washington State. And you'll get some tackles for losses. You'll get some havoc plays, but you're also going to give up plays. And against Utah, I still think a pretty limited offense. Bryson Barnes made a couple of really nice throws, but they were sort of one-on-one moments, and they were open. They were really open throws. And so I still don't think he's an upper-level quarterback in this conference. But when you can go straight at a team, when you can get the edge pretty consistently like you can against USC, Utah is a well enough coached team that Sione Vaki, the strong safety who's playing both ways, he's good enough to take advantage. And so what we learned about Utah is they can battle. They came out confident against this USC defense, which honestly most teams should. And they're just not going to shoot themselves in the foot. And this has always been a Utah program that if there is a very specific flaw to your team or to your roster, they can take advantage of it. That's what happens when you're that well coached, when you're that strong along the lines. So the big takeaway for me is Utah's good enough to beat a deeply flawed USC team. The other side of things with Utah is they're down their best two receivers, or their best two tight ends, They're down their starting quarterback for the season now, Cam Rising. That became official. They're down one of their top three receivers. Now they're down their top inside linebacker after the USC game. They're down their top defensive end, I believe, in Logan Fano. So there's a lot to take positive away from Utah, but there is something about Utah that's a lot of duct tape and chicken wire, because this offense has not performed against average or above average defenses kind of at all this year.
All right, circling back now to Utah and Oregon. You said, I think recently, that you thought Utah was the toughest remaining opponent. Is that, you still stand with that?
Yeah, well, so look, nobody wins in Salt Lake City.
Huh?
Nobody wins in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And so I, just from a wagering perspective, I just don't bet against good defenses at home in tough environments. Now, I don't think Rice Eccles is Autzen. I don't think it's, Husky Stadium. But when you have that combination of defense and home field at altitude, it's really difficult. The problem with Utah is still their own offense. And the defense is very good, and they're great at forcing 3 and outs. I think they're 4th nationally in the country at forcing 3 and outs. They're the number 1 success rate defense on obvious passing downs. And Oregon's is like number 7 on offense. So that's like an incredible matchup to behold when it's 3rd and 8 in front of that loud atmosphere. And that's where Will Stein should earn his money after a couple of, failed high leverage moments in Husky Stadium. So I definitely think it's the toughest opponent left, because Oregon State's, in Autzen Stadium. And if they end up in the Pac-12 championship game against Washington, that's in Vegas on a neutral field. And so to go to Salt Lake City now, that Utah won the USC game the way that they did, that's a tough amount of emotion to keep up, right? The fact that they win that game late, driving the field, getting that penalty on Bear Alexander to keep that drive going, setting themselves up for the field goal, that's a big emotional win. And to try to stay high against Oregon, that's a tough task. I think Oregon wins this game. You didn't ask me for a prediction. I think they win this game close because I think they have more ways to win. But yeah, I do think this is the toughest remaining matchup.
So it seems to me that the main danger would be that Utah's run defense only giving up like 78 yards per game. If they were able to slow down Oregon's rushing attack, which, is tough tall ask, obviously. Then more pressure falls on Bo Nix to sort of carry the team offensively through the air. Would that be your biggest concern for the Ducks offensively as well? If the running game goes south, can Bo carry them? And do you think if that happens, do you still think Oregon can figure out a way to win?
I do still think they can. I even think before those moments, like what we saw against Texas Tech in those penalties, right? The false starts or the illegal man downfield. We saw it against Washington State. That's part of Bo Nix's game is he's great at buying time, but he has to be on the same page as his offensive linemen to stay around the line of scrimmage. And so they need to minimize those 1st and 15s or, it's 2nd and 3 and then it becomes 2nd and 8. Those are huge moments for this offensive line on the road. I think Bo Nix is good enough because I think this receiving core is good enough. We saw it with Tez Johnson. We've seen it obviously all year with Troy Franklin. Terrence Ferguson has been clutch. So they have the weapons. They have the line. I think it's going to come down to Bo Nix being confident in what he sees. And so there are going to be receivers running open against this defense. The line should protect him well enough. He's one of the cleanest quarterbacks in the country. And so it is his ability to trust what he sees and to make quick decisions downfield that I think is key. Because, I think they will do well enough against the run. And if we can see anybody watching this game, Oregon get to 3rd and 3 consistently, Oregon should be in a good place. But that's still a big question for me.
Right. All right. Well, thanks for joining us as always, and we'll see if your prediction comes true. You not give me a score, or you just?
Yeah, I have it at 24-19, something like that.
So you do think that Utah's going to slow them down
somewhere in there?
So you do think Utah's going to slow Oregon down, but just that defense is going to get after them. So, okay.
Yeah, I do, because Utah actually doesn't protect Bryson Barnes super well because what you have to do is just force obvious passing downs. You can crowd the line of scrimmage. We saw USC do that. The complexion of the USC game changed when USC started stacking the box and forcing Bryson Barnes to win downfield. And so I think Oregon's going to start doing that early. And the fact is, Oregon has made incredible adjustments at halftime. You saw it against Washington. You saw it against Wazoo on defense. And so they'll do more of the same against Utah. So, I think it's going to – the possessions will be limited, like 23-17 Ducks.
All right. Thanks for joining us as always.
My pleasure. Okay,
up next, we'll bring back Joey and Anthony and get to our tools for victory and predictions. Which way am I leaning? I'm just not sure yet.
You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber.
Is this a game where the physical nature of it, like between the tackles, kind of, gets you excited a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those games where you're going to be banging heads in the trenches, right? So it's as close to as a Big Ten style game as you'll get in the Pac-12, which I played 4 years in, so it's something I'm used to, something I enjoy. Last year was awesome. Obviously, I got to do it again this year, or it won't mean anything. So. I'm excited for it. It's one of those games that keeps me up at night, just being anxious, being ready for it, excited for it. So, it's going to be a good time.
Welcome back to Talkin Ducks. It's time now for our tools for victory, brought to you by Leatherman. All right, I'm still unconvinced. I need you guys to convince me the Ducks can win this game. Let's start with Joey. Joey, give me a tools for victory for Oregon that they're going to need to pull out at Rice Eccles on Saturday.
Well, okay, is the question, what do they need? What is their tool in order to
the key tool that you haven't talked about yet?
Or what? Like for me, it's contain Jonah Ellis. Like that guy is the person who can put you in difficult situations. You're on the road against a phenomenally coached team, against a team that plays well together, one of the best defenses in the country. If you can contain him, whether it's chipping him off the edge, whether it's, slide the protection to him, whether it's kicking him out on counterplay, whatever your scheme is, after studying this guy on film, figure out a way to neutralize him. That's the tool for me, right? If you can neutralize him, you can stay ahead of the chains because your offensive line and your running game is good enough to do so. Right? That is 100% the thing for me, because if Oregon gets into a dogfight on the road, a 10-10 type of game, Bo is struggling to throw the football and Oregon's, getting hemmed up in the run game. That's exactly what Utah wants, right? The way you avoid that is by always knowing where Jonah Ellis is. That guy is the key for me. He's the tool. Do whatever you got to do. Use the Phillips head screwdriver on him one time, and then use like the serrated knife on him, and then come at it from like different multi-tool stuff. Like throw the whole thing at him, because if you can neutralize him, you can score some points. And if you can score some points, Utah's offense is not going to be able to score enough to keep up with you. That is going to be the whole thing for me.
Yeah, when I sit down on the couch, I'm going to watch a great matchup. You have the Oregon's running game against Utah's defensive running game. Oregon's ranked 6th in the country in rushing. Utah is ranked 5th against the run in the country. That is going to be a battle. And then when you talk about winning championships, to me, you have to run the football, you have to play good defense, and what puts you over the edge is having a great quarterback, and Oregon has a great quarterback. So that's the running game is going to be interesting. It's going to be fun to watch this battle between the two head coaches and their schemes and the guys executing on film. And Bucky Irving, is he going to have the success that he had against these other teams? We'll find out.
Let me say this though, Newman. Bucky Irving doesn't have to be a world beater, right?
No.
Bucky Irving doesn't have to go for $150 and 2 touchdowns. But if he can make sure that Oregon is in 2nd and 6 instead of 2nd and 12, then it allows Bo to do Bo to be that quarterback, right? Like your point, he's better than anybody that Utah is going to put under center, right?
Yep.
But on the road against an incredible defense, any quarterback is going to struggle when it's 3rd and 11, 3rd and 13, and you're always facing 3rd and long situations. Bucky Irving and that Oregon running game, as long as they can keep him on the plus side of the chains, will allow Bo Nix to be that difference maker.
All right, here's my take. For me, the pass game I'm looking at is Texas Tech. Oregon goes up in there, the running game, 113 on the ground. They're struggling, they're losing, and then Bo Nix puts the team on his back. 359 passing, 2 touchdowns, they win the game. I think this is going to be very similar. I think Utah is a better team, though. A way better team than Texas Tech. It's going to be tougher. Bo's not throwing for 359. I don't believe that's going to happen. But I do think the running game is going to be slowed down a bit. And I do think Bo Nix is going to have to make some plays in the passing game to lift this team to victory, and do so against a team that's going to put him in some 2nd and 3rd and longs and get after him. That Utah has 25 sacks on the season. I know Bo doesn't get sacked a lot, but he also hasn't played a team that has this many sacks at this point in the season. So I think it's going to be a tough day for Oregon offensively. We'll see if Bo Nix can get it done. Now let's move to our predictions. I'm still thinking about mine, but let's start with you, Joey.
Look, I said at the beginning of the year, this is going to be an 11-1 football team. And it's going to be either the Washington game or the Utah game that are going to be the one. Well, we saw which one it was. It was the Washington game. I think this is going to be an Oregon team that learned from what happened at Washington, that actually learned from what happened in the first quarter against Washington State, and when they kind of diverted from who they were offensively, right? This isn't going to be a massive high-flying, even though Utah scored, they scored 38 last week. That's, because we said USC's defense is booty. Oregon's defense, not booty. They're the good, solid squad, both against the run and against the pass. So I see this as is it a 24-17 type of 24-20? I think this is the type of game where, and I didn't get a chance to say it, and I probably wouldn't have said it. Well, maybe if I was coming out of anesthesia and we were talking to each other, I would have said it. Fentress, you called it. You had it spot on, right? We all said it was going to be 38-35 in the other direction. You said it's going to be 38-35 for Washington because of that home field advantage. I think this is the type of game that is just flipped the other way. I think this is a 24-20 type of game for Oregon because of what they've learned in the loss against Washington and in the win against Washington State.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm looking at this game, let's go back. I said it earlier. How did Oregon State beat them? 21-7. Utah beat UCLA only 14-7. So there's some holes there. And when I look at this Oregon team, there's not a lot of holes in the offense or the defense. You got some superstars on the Oregon offense. You got some superstars on the defense. You got playmakers. Yeah, Utah also has playmakers. They play as a team. But when you add everything up and you sit there for 4 quarters, can you beat the Ducks in 4 quarters? Washington did, but I don't think it could be done again I don't think Utah has the weapons to do it again. I think Oregon wins by 3.
All right, here's my prediction. I've already stated that I think the Utah is going to slow down Oregon's run game. I just do feel like Bo Nix is going to make it happen. It may not be throwing for 300 plus, but his dual threat capability will allow him to make enough plays to create something out of nothing, to evade pressure and get it done. As impressed as I am with Whittingham and what Utah has done, they're starting a guy in Bryson Barnes who began the season as a third-string quarterback, and he had a good game at USC. But man, Joey, with your bum knee, you could probably go out there and have a good game at USC right now. So I think Oregon's defense gets it done against Barnes in that running game enough to allow Bo to make some plays, and they win 27-24. There's my prediction. We're all in concert together. We can all hold hands and sing around the campfire, whatever. Anyway, that's my prediction. I think I'm getting this hosting thing down a little bit. I don't think we need Jordan anymore. This is my show. Okay, probably not. He pays me, so I guess it's still his show. Anyway, we'll be back next week to talk about this game and look ahead to Cal.